Ceann Corla. Ceann Corla, every member of this House who speaks on this topic speaks, I think, with great empathy and in a very well-intentioned way. I think all our objectives are to ensure that children with special educational needs and their parents are able to see those children have an easy and certain passage into education. However, I suppose from the point of view of the parents who inspire all of us so much, empathy from us is not enough. Understanding from us is not enough. It really rests upon us to solve this growing social and educational problem that has really developed to a much larger extent in recent years. There obviously has been progress in recent years, but we still have huge challenges to face in respect of it. I think it's important that we start from first principles, Ceann Corla. And I suppose the first principle that I start from is that every child in this country, irrespective of their ability, irrespective of whether or not they have special educational needs or not, has a constitutional entitlement to an education. Article 42 of the Constitution sets out the obligation that's imposed on the state to ensure that a child is given a free primary education. I think, in effect, there's still a constitutional obligation that goes beyond that. And that right to an education applies to a child irrespective of their educational needs. And this House and the other House have given statutory recognition to that through the Education Act, which recognises that the same rights that are appropriate to children without special educational needs should apply to children with special educational needs. There shouldn't be any distinction between the two when they come to start their education, in the same way as that there isn't any distinction between a person of moderate intelligence or a person of extreme intelligence when they're starting out in their education. I also think we need to recall that in this country we've made a policy decision that the model of education we're going to use for children with special educational needs is a model which encourages integration and inclusion. That means we have decided as policymakers that we want to see children with special educational needs educated in what we refer to as mainstream schools. It's obviously the prerogative and choice of the parents to decide where their child goes. I'm well aware that it's not the case that every child with special educational needs is going to be capable or it's going to be suitable to go to what we refer to as a mainstream school. But the basis for our policy is that we've decided that it should be built on a policy of integration and inclusion. We also know that under our international obligations that the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities says people with disabilities should not be excluded from free primary or secondary education, and that's expressly set out in that convention in Article 24. So they're the basic principles I think we need to start from. Then we need to identify what are the problems. And the main problem in the current system is that it is haphazard when it comes to children being able to access places within primary schools. It is not at present mandatory for schools to ensure that they have places for children who want to come into the school who have special educational needs. Instead, we have this system, and I've seen it in my own constituency repeatedly, where parents have to literally go through a begging process of going around from national school to national school, trying to see whether the national school will take in their child in the forthcoming September. Regrettably, on far too many occasions, the vast majority of them are told that, unfortunately, this school does not have facilities to deal with a child with such special educational needs. That isn't acceptable that we place that obligation on parents, that they have to hunt around looking for a space in a suitable school. I suppose the principle should be that all primary schools should have available places for children with special educational needs. I know there's the power under Section 37A and it has been used in the past, but unfortunately, Minister, I think we're going to have to use it more in the future unless schools get into line and provide these services. I'm pleased to say that in my own constituency there were very significant issues there with primary schools that did not offer ASD classrooms. That is improving, it's improving considerably, but we still need to see it go much further. Then when it comes to needs assessments, I had a very interesting consultation with Minister Rabbitte and with members of the HSE who do the special needs assessments for children in the Dublin 2 and Dublin 4 area. There are huge resource issues there. I was informed that approximately 50% vacancies existed in terms of the persons who carry out the special needs assessments. We all know it's much quicker to get it done if you have the money to go private. We need to assess whether or not the state is using and serving parents and those children most effectively by putting them on a list where they have to wait for it to be done publicly. Maybe the state should consider going out there and purchasing the private expertise to get this work done much more fast. We also need to be aware that there needs to be greater recognition of the data. We do not have enough data on the number of children awaiting diagnosis or who have been diagnosed or not diagnosed but who are in need of support. We also know, Minister, that the Department of Education has kept SNA hours at 2019 levels, and special education hours have been cut for certain schools. So the schools only get hours based on the numbers, not on the individual needs basis. So that's something that we need to look at. And simply, there aren't enough AST classrooms at present. We also need to look to see, and I'm sorry I'm running out of time, about what can be done to help. And I'll return to that in a future speech, Minister, but I think we do need to start looking at the fact that we need to have greater emphasis on ensuring that integration that is our desire, that it actually is achieved in terms of policy.